Hey everyone, and welcome back. We often talk about being strong and resilient, but what about those times when we feel, well, kind of not?
Yeah, like we're supposed to have it all figured out, right? But this time, we're diving into something that usually stays hidden: vulnerability.
I'm actually really curious about this one. We got a ton of listener suggestions to cover this, and honestly, at first I didn't get it. Like, why lean into the stuff that makes us feel shaky?
It's funny how we're almost conditioned to avoid vulnerability, huh? Like it's this weakness. But the stuff you sent over, some really interesting research actually suggests the opposite.
Okay, now you've got my attention. So, where do we even begin with this whole vulnerability thing?
Well, the first step, and this might sound kind of obvious, but the research really emphasizes actually acknowledging those fears we have, those things that make us feel vulnerable.
So, like, admitting to ourselves the stuff we usually try to sweep under the rug?
Exactly. Because if we don't even want to admit it to ourselves, how can we possibly even begin to work with it? It's like, imagine trying to solve a puzzle but refusing to look at half the pieces.
Right, right. But okay, let's say we've identified some things that make us feel, a little iffy. Then what?
Well, this is where that self compassion thing comes in. And honestly, this one can be tough, even for me.
Oh, tell me about it. It's like easier said than done. Isn't it a bit like, oh, just be nice to yourself when like everything inside is screaming?
Yeah, it's not always sunshine and rainbows, that's for sure.
Yep.
But the research suggests that treating ourselves with the same kindness we'd offer, say, a close friend going through something similar can be, well, kind of game changing.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, I'd never berate my best friend for being scared or feeling insecure. So why do we do it to ourselves?
Exactly. So instead of that inner critic going into overdrive, try that compassionate voice instead. Might take a little practice, but it can make a world of difference.
All right, I'm willing to give it a shot. But then things get even more interesting. The research you sent talks about how sharing those vulnerabilities, like actually telling someone, can be a source of strength. How does that work? Isn't that terrifying?
It can be for sure. But there's a caveat here. It's not about like posting our deepest fears on social media for validation. It's about choosing those safe spaces, those trusted individuals who've earned the right to hear our more vulnerable sides.
So being strategic about who we open up to.
Yeah. Think about it this way. When someone trusts us enough to be vulnerable with us, doesn't that deepen the connection? It shows a level of, well, realness.
It's true. When a friend shares something personal with me, it makes them feel more human, more relatable.
Precisely. And when we allow ourselves to be seen authentically, flaws and all, it kind of gives others permission to do the same. And that's how we build those truly meaningful connections.
So, in a way, by embracing our own vulnerability, we're actually helping others embrace theirs.
Now you're getting it. It creates this ripple effect of authenticity and connection.
Wow. Okay, this is making a lot more sense now. But let's be real, putting this into practice, especially if you're someone who avoids vulnerability like the plague, it can feel overwhelming.
Oh, absolutely. It's a process, not a switch we just flip. But even baby steps count. The research suggests starting small, like maybe share a minor vulnerability with one trusted person, see how it feels, how they respond.
I like that. Starting small and building from there.
Exactly. And as you get more comfortable, you can gradually challenge yourself to share a little more, a little deeper.
I have to admit, when we first started this deep dive, I was a bit skeptical, like vulnerability,
Hmm.
no thank you. But honestly, after unpacking all of this, I'm starting to see it in a whole new light.
It's a journey, right?
Definitely. And for our listeners, maybe this has sparked some new thoughts. What if embracing those parts of ourselves that we often try to hide could actually be the key to stronger relationships and a more authentic life?
There you go. Something to chew on this week.
Right. Until next time, everyone, keep diving deep.